The stars around Earth grew brighter as 50 massive ships appeared from nowhere. Each ship was the size of a small city, their dark metal hulls covered in strange symbols that glowed with purple light. They moved in perfect formation, blocking out whole sections of the night sky as they took positions around the solar system. On the largest ship, Ambassador Kithara stood tall in the command center. Her blue skin sparkled under the bright lights, and her 4 arms moved gracefully as she studied the screens around her. She had done this many times before. The pattern was always the same. "Another primitive world," she said to her officers. "Look at their tiny ships. Look at their simple technology. They barely learned to travel between stars 50 years ago." The other aliens nodded. They had conquered thousands of worlds just like this one. The humans would be no different. They would beg, they would cry, and then they would surrender. It was the way of the galaxy. Kithara touched a control panel with one of her long fingers. "Send the message," she ordered. The transmission went out to every radio, television, and computer on Earth. The message was simple and had been used for over 1,000 years. It worked every time. "People of Earth," Kithara's voice spoke in perfect English. The Empire's computers had learned human languages in minutes. "I am Ambassador Kithara of the Zephyri Galactic Empire. We rule 10,000 star systems across this galaxy. Your world is now part of our domain." In cities around Earth, people stopped what they were doing to listen. Some looked up at the night sky and saw the alien ships hanging there like dark clouds. Others gathered around screens in homes, offices, and public squares. "You have 7 days to accept our terms," the message continued. "You will give us 30% of all your resources. This includes your metals, your energy, your food, and your technology. You will also give us 15% of your people to work in our factories and mines. In return, we will protect you from other threats and share some of our knowledge with you." The transmission showed images of other worlds that had accepted these terms. Cities that gleamed with alien technology. People who seemed happy and well-fed. It looked like a good deal if you did not look too closely. "If you refuse," Kithara's voice grew cold, "we will take what we want by force. Your cities will burn. Your people will suffer. Your world will become a wasteland. Choose wisely." The message ended with a countdown timer. 7 days, 23. Hours, 59 minutes. And counting down. President Sarah Martinez sat in the underground command center beneath Washington. Around her, military leaders, scientists, and advisors talked in worried voices. General Roberts, the head of Earth's Space Defense Force, was the first to speak. "Madam President, our satellites show 50 capital ships. Each one has enough firepower to destroy a continent. We have maybe 200 ships in our entire fleet, and most of them are transports or mining vessels." Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading expert on alien technology, shook her head. "The technology gap is enormous. Their shields can stop anything we have. Their weapons can punch through our best armor like paper. A direct fight would be suicide. So we surrender?" asked Admiral Chun, her voice bitter. "We just give them 1/3 of everything we have and 15% of our people? Let me tell you what that really means," Dr. Vasquez said quietly. 15% of our people means about 1 billion humans. They will not be workers. They will be slaves. And 30% of our resources means we will barely have enough left to survive. The room fell silent. Everyone knew she was right. The images in the alien message had been lies. The Empire did not share technology with its subjects. It took everything valuable and left just enough to keep the population alive and working. President Martinez looked around the room. These were Earth's best and brightest people. If they could not find a solution, no one could. What about the Prometheus project? she asked quietly. General Roberts and Dr. Vasquez exchanged glances. The Prometheus project was Earth's most secret program. Only a few dozen people knew it existed. "It is not ready," General Roberts said. "We need at least 6 more months of testing." "We do not have 6 months," the president replied. "We have 7 days. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. "Madam President, if we activate Prometheus now, there is a good chance it will fail. If it fails, we lose everything. If we do nothing, we also lose everything, but at least some of us will survive as slaves." "And if it works?" Dr. Vasquez smiled for the first time in hours. "If it works, these aliens will regret the day they found Earth." The president was quiet for a long moment. Outside, she knew people around the world were panicking. Stock markets were crashing. Governments were holding emergency meetings. Religious leaders were calling it the end times. But here in this room, the people who really understood Earth's situation were surprisingly calm. They had been preparing for this day for decades. "Send a message to the aliens," President Martinez said finally. "Tell them we need time to discuss their offer with our people. Tell them we will give them our answer in 7 days." "What should the tone be?" asked the communications officer. "Polite, but not afraid. We are not begging for mercy, and we are not acting desperate. Just tell them we will get back to them." Up in the Zephyr flagship, Ambassador Kithara received Earth's response with amusement. The message was shorter than she expected. Most species sent long transmissions full of questions, pleas, and attempts to negotiate. The humans just said they would consider the offer and respond in 7 days. "How strange," she said to her second-in-command, Officer Zelek. "They seem almost casual about this." Zelek studied the message again. "Perhaps they do not understand the situation. Should we send additional demonstrations of our power?" Kithara waved one of her hands dismissively. "No need. They will come around. They always do. 7 days gives them time to panic, to argue among themselves, and to realize they have no choice. By the end of the week, they will be begging to surrender." She turned to look at the blue and green planets spinning slowly below them. It was a beautiful world, full of resources and perfect for colonization. The humans had done well taking care of it. Soon it would belong to the Empire, and the humans would be put to better use serving their new masters. "Set up patrol schedules," she ordered. "Monitor their communications. I want to know everything they are planning. Not that it matters. In 7 days, this will all be over." But even as she spoke, Kithara felt a small worry in the back of her mind. The human response had been different somehow. Not defiant, not scared, just ... calm. In all her years of conquest, she had never encountered that kind of reaction. She pushed the thought away. Humans were just another primitive species. They would fall in line like all the others. The Empire had been doing this for thousands of years. It never failed. Down on Earth, President Martinez walked through the corridors of the secret base. Behind locked doors, scientists and engineers worked around the clock on projects that would have seemed impossible just 50 years ago. Earth had learned much from studying captured alien technology over the decades. But they had not tried to copy it. Instead, they had found ways to destroy it. The countdown timer continued. 6 days, 18 hours, and 37 minutes remaining. But the president was not worried about time anymore. The Zephyr Empire was about to learn that Earth was not like other worlds. They were about to learn that humans did not make good slaves. Day 3 of the countdown brought strange reports to Ambassador Kithara's command center. Officer Zelek stood before her with a confused expression on his scaled face. "Ambassador, the humans are doing something unexpected," he said, holding a data tablet in his clawed hands. Kithara looked up from her daily reports. Every other species had followed the same pattern during their 7-day deadline. First came panic, then desperate attempts to negotiate, then preparation of tribute ships. The humans were doing none of these things. "Show me," she ordered. The main screen lit up with images from around Earth. Instead of loading cargo ships with resources, human military vessels were pulling back from their forward positions. Space stations that had been bristling with defensive weapons were powering down their systems. Even the orbital shipyards were moving away from Earth toward the outer planets. "They appear to be retreating," Zelek said, scratching his head with one claw. "But retreating from what? We have not attacked yet." Kithara studied the images more carefully. Human civilian populations were moving too, but not in the chaotic panic she expected. Long lines of transport vehicles moved in organized convoys toward underground facilities. Children walked calmly beside their parents. There was no crying, no running, no signs of terror. "This is most unusual," she muttered. "Are they preparing to hide underground? Do they think that will save them?" Another officer approached with more reports. "Ambassador, we are detecting massive data transfers between Earth and their outer colonies. They seem to be copying everything from their computer networks and sending it away from the planet." Kithara felt the first small twist of doubt in her stomach. In thousands of conquests, she had never seen anything like this. Species either fought desperately, surrendered immediately, or tried to negotiate. The humans were doing something else entirely. "What about their military communications?" she asked. "That is the strangest part," the communications officer replied. "They have stopped talking to us completely. No requests for negotiation. Number. Pleas for mercy. No threats of resistance. Complete silence." On Earth, President Martinez walked through the empty corridors of the White House. Most of the government had moved to secure underground facilities, but she had stayed behind to oversee the final preparations. Through the windows, she could see the lights of Washington dimming as more people evacuated to the safety bunkers. General Roberts found her in the Oval Office, looking up at the night sky where alien ships hung like dark stars. "Madam President, Phase 1 is complete," he reported. "All essential personnel and civilians are in the deep shelters. Our space fleet has withdrawn to the outer system as planned. The Prometheus weapons are in position and awaiting your orders. And our alien friends, how are they reacting?" "Confused," Roberts said with a slight smile. "Their ships are scanning constantly, trying to figure out what we are doing. They keep sending messages asking if we want to negotiate, but we have not responded." President Martinez nodded. Earth's strategy was simple, but had never been tried before. Every other species had tried to fight the Empire with conventional weapons, or had surrendered without fighting at all. Humanity was doing neither. "They expect us to be afraid," she said quietly. "They expect us to beg or threaten or make deals. They have no idea how to handle silence." Dr. Vasquez entered the office carrying a secure tablet. "Madam President, all Prometheus units report ready. We have been monitoring the alien ships for 72 hours now. Our computers have mapped every detail of their technology, their formations, and their communication patterns. Are you confident in the plan?" Dr. Vasquez hesitated for just a moment. "The weapons will work. We have tested them on captured alien technology for 20 years. But what happens after? It depends on how smart these aliens really are." High above Earth, in the Zephyr flagship, the mood was growing tense. Ambassador Kithara had called a meeting of all her ship commanders. The holographic images of 50 captains filled the conference room, their various alien faces showing. Confusion and frustration. "Report," Kithara ordered. Captain Vorth of the battlecruiser Dominator spoke first. "The humans have abandoned their defensive positions completely. Our scans show minimal military presence anywhere in the inner solar system. It is as if they are offering us a free conquest. But that makes no sense, said Captain Rylax of the destroyer squadron. Why move civilians to safety if they plan to surrender? Why evacuate their space stations? Captain Thurin, the oldest and most experienced commander in the fleet, spoke. Slowly. In my 400 years of service, I have seen many conquered worlds. The humans are behaving like no species I have ever encountered. They show no fear, but they are clearly preparing for something. Kithara felt her confidence wavering. The Empire's success had always been based on understanding how other species thought. Fear, greed, pride, desperation, these were emotions. The Zephyri knew how to exploit. But the humans seemed to be operating by completely different rules. Perhaps they are simply naive, she said, trying to convince herself as much as her officers. They are a young species. They may not understand what conquest means. But even as she spoke, new reports came in that made her doubt this explanation. Human scientists were publishing research papers as if nothing unusual was happening. Their news broadcasts spoke calmly about temporary relocations and safety procedures. Most disturbing of all, human children in the evacuation centers were attending regular school classes. They act as if this is just a minor inconvenience, Officer Zelak observed. As if 50 Imperial warships are no more threatening than a thunderstorm. On day 5, something changed. The human military ships that had retreated to the outer system began moving again, but not in any pattern the Zephyri recognized. Instead of forming battle lines or defensive formations, the human vessels spread out into seemingly random positions throughout the solar system. What are they doing now? Kithara demanded. The tactical officer studied his displays. Unknown. Ambassador. The ships appear to be taking positions around asteroids, moons, and other celestial bodies. Some are hiding in the shadows of planets. Others are stationing themselves near the edge of the system. Are they planning to run away? Negative. Our sensors show they are powering up their weapon systems, but the energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. These are not the plasma cannons or missile launchers we observed during our initial scans. Kithara felt a chill run down her spine. The Empire's intelligence network was vast and ancient. Their databases contained information about every known weapon technology in the galaxy. If the human weapons were not in those databases, it meant only one thing. They have developed something new, she whispered Dot meanwhile. In the deepest levels of the Cheyenne Mountain complex, Dr. Vasquez made final adjustments to the Prometheus control systems. Around her, hundreds of technicians monitored screens filled with data from across the solar system. All units report green status, called out the system coordinator. Quantum destabilizers are charged and locked onto primary targets. Gravity. Cannons are loaded and aimed. Temporal mines are armed and positioned. Subspace inhibitors are ready for deployment. Dr. Vasquez looked at the countdown timer. 2 days, 14 hours, 23 minutes remaining. But they would not wait for the deadline. The aliens were about to receive their answer much sooner than expected. Connect me to President Martinez, she said. The president's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, the lights of the command bunker cast strange shadows on the concrete walls. Dr. Vasquez, are we ready? Yes, Madam President. All systems are functioning perfectly. We can begin the demonstration at any time. President. Martinez was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the billions of people in the shelters below, trusting their leaders to protect them. She thought about the alien ships hanging in space above, expecting humanity to surrender like every other species before them. The aliens wanted an answer, she said finally. Let us give them one they will never forget. Begin Phase 2. Dr. Vasquez smiled as she turned to her technicians. You heard the president. Send the message. Deploy Probe 17. In space, a small human vessel detached itself from the shadow of a distant asteroid. It was barely larger than a shuttle, insignificant compared to the massive alien warships. But as it moved toward the Zephyr fleet, every human weapon in the solar system tracked its progress. The demonstration was about to begin. The small human ship moved slowly toward the center of the Zephyr fleet. Ambassador Kithara watched it approach on her main screen, feeling more confused with each passing minute. The vessel was tiny, smaller than most escape pods. It carried no visible weapons and showed no signs of hostile intent. "Should we destroy it?" asked Officer Zelek, his hand hovering over the weapons controls. "No," Kithara replied. "Let it come. I want to see what these humans think they can accomplish with one little ship." The human vessel stopped exactly 1 kilometer from the flagship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a transmission came through on all frequencies. "Ambassador." "Kithara," said a calm human voice. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earth Space Forces. We have an answer to your demands." Kithara leaned forward in her command chair. Finally, the humans were ready to surrender. "I am listening, Captain Chun. Have you prepared your tribute ships?" "In a way," Chun replied. "We have prepared a demonstration. Instead, please observe carefully." Before Kithara could respond, the small human ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. But this was unlike any explosion she had ever seen. Instead of fire and debris, the ship seemed to tear a hole in space itself. Reality bent and twisted around the blast point, creating a swirling vortex of impossible colors. "What is that?" Zelek shouted, his voice filled with terror. The vortex grew larger, pulling everything nearby toward its center. 3 Zephyr destroyers, each one larger than a city block, began sliding helplessly toward the growing hole in space. Their engines fired at maximum power, but it made no difference. The gravitational pull was too strong. "Emergency jump," Kithara screamed. "Get those ships out of there." But the destroyer's faster-than-light drives would not activate. Warning alarms filled the bridge as the ship's computers reported impossible readings. The 3 vessels stretched and twisted as they fell into the vortex, their metal hulls bending like rubber before disappearing completely. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the vortex collapsed. Space returned to normal, leaving only empty blackness where 3 Imperial warships had been just moments before. "Impossible," Kithara whispered. "That technology does not exist." Captain Chun's voice came through the speakers again, still perfectly calm. "Actually, it does exist. Humans have been working on it for quite some time. That was just a small one." Before anyone could respond, more human ships began appearing throughout the solar system. They emerged from behind asteroids, from the shadows of moons, and from positions the Zephyr sensors had somehow missed. Each vessel was different from anything in the Empire's databases. "Battle stations," Kithara ordered. "All ships, prepare for combat." The Zephyr fleet moved into attack formation, their plasma cannons charging and their shields powering up to maximum strength. 50 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy prepared to face perhaps 200 human vessels that looked primitive by comparison. The first volley of alien fire lit up space with brilliant beams of superheated plasma. The energy bolts streaked toward the human ships, each one carrying enough power to melt through the strongest known armor. The humans made no attempt to dodge. Instead, something impossible happened. A plasma beam simply stopped in mid-flight, hanging motionless in space like frozen lightning. Then slowly they began moving backward, returning to their original sources. "Our own weapons are attacking us," reported the tactical officer as Zephyr shields flared under the impact of their own plasma bolts. Captain Chun's voice filled the communication channels. Thank you for the energy donation. Our collectors are always hungry for more power. On the human flagship U-East Prometheus, Captain Chun stood calmly on her bridge while her crew worked with practiced efficiency. Around her, dozens of screens showed the battle from every angle. The ship's artificial intelligence system was recording and analyzing every detail of the alien response. "Status report," she ordered. "All quantum collectors are functioning perfectly," replied her weapons officer. "We have absorbed 93% of their plasma discharge and fed it into our main power grid. Excellent. Begin Phase 2. Deploy the gravity cannons." Throughout the human fleet, weapons unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen began to fire. The gravity cannons did not shoot projectiles or energy beams. Instead, they fired pure gravitational force, creating invisible waves that could crush matter at the atomic level. The first Zephyr cruiser hit by a gravity wave simply crumpled. Its mile-long hull folded in on itself like paper, compressing into a ball of twisted metal barely larger than a football. The crew inside had no time to scream. "Their shields are useless," observed the science officer. "Gravity passes right through energy barriers." Another type of human weapon revealed itself when a group of Zephyr fighters attempted to attack. The humans launched what looked like simple missiles, but as the projectiles flew through space, they began to fade in and out of reality. The alien pilots tried to shoot them down, but their weapons passed harmlessly through targets that were only partially there. The missiles struck their targets and exploded, but the explosions happened in multiple dimensions at once. The fighter craft did not just blow apart. They ceased to exist entirely, erased from reality as if they had never been built. "Phase shift warheads," Captain Chun explained over the radio, her voice still maddeningly calm. "We learned a lot about dimensional physics from studying your technology. It turns out there are much more interesting applications than simple faster-than-light travel." Ambassador Kithara watched in growing horror as her fleet was systematically dismantled. The humans were not just winning the battle, they were making it look easy. Worse yet, they seemed to be treating the entire engagement as some kind of experiment. "They are studying us," she realized with growing dread. "Every weapon we fire, every tactic we use, they are learning from it." This observation proved correct when a squadron of Zephyr ships attempted a coordinated attack pattern that had never failed in 1,000 years of warfare. Before they could execute the maneuver, the human ships moved to counter it perfectly, as if they had known exactly what was coming. "How did they know?" demanded Captain Vorth over the communication system. Captain Chun answered him directly. "Your attack pattern is now designated as Zephyr Formation 7 in our combat database. Our artificial intelligence systems have analyzed your fleet movements and can predict your tactics with 97% accuracy. You are very predictable." The human weapons became more exotic with each passing minute. Temporal mines that trapped enemy ships in time loops, forcing them to repeat the same 10 seconds over and over again. Quantum destabilizers that caused matter to phase out of existence one molecule at a time. Energy drains that sucked the power from alien ships and left them drifting helplessly in space. But perhaps the most terrifying discovery came when the surviving Zephyr ships attempted to retreat. Their faster-than-light drives activated, but nothing happened. The ships remained exactly where they were, trapped in normal space. "FTL systems are non-functional," reported a panicked alien voice over the emergency channels. "We cannot jump to hyperspace." Captain Chun's response chilled the blood of every alien in the fleet. "That would be our subspace inhibitors. We have created a dead zone around this entire solar system. No ship can leave using faster-than-light travel. You are all trapped here with us." The realization hit the Zephyr fleet like a physical blow. They were not just losing a battle. They were prisoners. The primitive humans had turned the entire solar system into a cage, and the Empire's mighty fleet was locked inside with an enemy that seemed to have weapons beyond their understanding. "Surrender!" Kithara finally screamed into her transmitter. "We surrender. Stop this attack." But Captain Shun's response was not what she expected. "Surrender? Oh no, Ambassador. We are just getting started. You came here to take tribute from Earth. Now you are going to provide us with something much more valuable. You are going to give us a complete demonstration of Imperial military technology. Every ship, every weapon, every defensive system. We want to see it all." The human fleet began moving into new positions, their exotic weapons powering up for another round of testing. In the depths of space, the most powerful military force in the galaxy had become laboratory animals for a species they had thought was primitive and weak. The real battle was only beginning. What followed was not a battle in any way that Ambassador Kithara understood. It was something far worse. The humans treated the remaining Zephyr ships like specimens in a laboratory, testing different weapons and recording the results with scientific precision. "Deploy Formation Pattern 12, Captain Shun ordered from the bridge of the Prometheus. Around her, officers worked calmly at their stations, while screens showed the systematic destruction of the most powerful fleet in Ning. "Galactic history. Formation 12 confirmed," replied her tactical officer. "All ships moving to surround the remaining Imperial vessels. Shall we begin the next test sequence?" "Proceed. I want to see how their adaptive shields respond to our particle beam weapons." The human ships moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. In reality, they were linked by quantum communication systems that allowed instant data sharing between all vessels. Every human ship knew exactly what every other ship was doing at all times. The Zephyr had never encountered anything like this level of coordination. Their own fleets relied on traditional radio communications, which created delays and confusion in large battles. The humans fought like a single organism with many arms. "Fire particle beams," Captain Shun commanded. Streams of energy unlike anything in Imperial databases lashed out from the human weapons. These were not simple plasma bolts or laser beams. The particle streams contained matter that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, making them impossible to defend against using conventional shields. The Zephyr barriers flared and sparked as they tried to stop the impossible weapons. Some of the alien shields adapted, changing frequency and power levels to better resist the attack. But the human computers were watching, learning, and adapting faster than any biological mind could follow. "Interesting," observed the science. "Officer, their shields can adapt to new energy signatures. Make a note of that. Now switch to gravity pulse weapons." Admiral Kithara watched in despair as her flagship shields failed completely. The humans had tested 5 different weapon types in just 10 minutes, learning everything there was to know about Safari defensive technology. Each new attack was perfectly designed to counter whatever adaptations her ships had made to the previous assault. "How are they doing this?" she whispered to Officer Zelek. "How can they learn so fast?" Zelek studied his scanner readings with growing fear. "Ambassador, I do not think those are just human crews on those ships." The response: "Time is too fast, the coordination too perfect. I think they are using artificial minds to control their weapons." The idea sent a chill through Kithira's body. Artificial intelligence was forbidden in the Empire. Too many civilizations had been destroyed by machines that became too smart for their creators to control. The humans appeared to have mastered the technology that had killed entire species. "All ships," she broadcast to what remained of her fleet, "attempt ramming attacks. If we cannot destroy them with weapons, we will crash into them." It was a desperate plan, but the Imperial ships were fast and heavily armored. Even human weapons, might not be able to stop a direct collision by a ship traveling at maximum speed. The surviving Zephyr vessels turned toward the nearest human ships and engaged their emergency boosters. These engines were designed for escape situations and could push a warship to incredible speeds in just seconds. But the humans had been expecting this tactic. As the alien ships accelerated, space around them began to change. Reality itself seemed to thicken like invisible mud, slowing the Imperial vessels despite their roaring engines. Inertial dampeners, Captain Chun explained over the radio. We can alter the fundamental properties of space-time in a localized area. Your ships think they are moving at maximum speed, but from our perspective, you are barely crawling. The desperate ramming attacks failed completely. Zephyr ships that should have been traveling at crushing speeds drifted harmlessly past their targets, like leaves floating on a gentle breeze. But the most horrifying moment came when Captain Vorth, commander of the battle cruiser Dominator, decided to try the Empire's ultimate weapon. Every Imperial ship carried a planet-killer bomb designed to crack worlds open if a population refused to surrender. "If I am going to die," he announced over the emergency channels, "I will take some of you humans with me." The massive bomb detached from his ship and began accelerating toward Earth. It was the size of a small building and contained enough antimatter to destroy a continent. No known technology could stop it once it was armed and launched. The humans did not even try to intercept it. Instead, something impossible happened to the bomb itself. As it flew through space, it began to slow down, then stop, then reverse direction. The planet killer turned around and began flying back toward the ship that had launched it. Captain Vorth had just enough time to scream before his own weapon destroyed his vessel in a flash of annihilating energy. "Temporal reversal field," Captain Chun explained to the shocked survivors. "We can reverse the flow of time in a small area. Your bomb never reached us because, from its perspective, it never left your ship." Ambassador Kithara realized that she was no longer dealing with a military engagement. The humans had turned physics itself into a weapon. They were not just more advanced than the Empire, they were operating by completely different rules of reality. "Please," she transmitted to the human fleet, "we surrender completely. Stop this demonstration. You have proven your point." Captain Chun's response came immediately. "Oh, but we are not finished yet, Ambassador. We still need to test our weapons against Imperial battle armor, emergency shields, and escape pod systems. You have provided U.S. with such wonderful research material." The systematic destruction continued. Human weapons that could phase through solid matter tested the strength of alien hull armor. Devices that could shut down specific types of technology disabled Imperial life support systems, one component at a time. Weapons that attacked the mind itself caused alien crews to forget how to operate their own equipment. Each test was carefully recorded and analyzed. The humans were not just defeating the Empire's fleet, they were dissecting it piece by piece to understand every detail of Imperial technology. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the entire engagement was the attitude of the human crews. They showed no anger, no hatred, no desire for revenge. They went about their work with the calm professionalism of scientists conducting an important experiment. When Officer Zalak's communications console exploded from a targeted electromagnetic pulse, he received a transmission from a human medic offering medical assistance. When a Zephyr escape pod jettisoned from a damaged cruiser, human ships escorted it to safety rather than destroying it. "They are not even angry at us," Zalak observed with growing confusion. "They are destroying our fleet, but they still try to save our lives." This behavior was completely outside Kithara's understanding. In her experience, warfare was driven by emotion, fear, rage, hatred, or greed. The humans seemed to view the entire battle as nothing more than a necessary task to be completed efficiently. as the last functional Imperial ship drifted helplessly in space. Its weapons destroyed and its engines offline, Captain Sean finally opened communications for a real conversation. "Ambassador Cathara," she said, her voice still perfectly calm. "The testing phase is now complete. Our computers have recorded detailed information about Imperial military technology, tactics, and capabilities. This data will be very useful for future encounters." "Future encounters?" Cathara asked weakly. "Of course. You do not think this fleet represents the entire Imperial military, do you? There will be others, larger fleets, different weapons. We want to be ready for them." The implications of Chun's words hit Cathara like a physical blow. The humans had not just defeated this attack, they had used it as preparation for the next one. They were already planning for a war that might last decades or centuries. "However," Chun continued, "we are not completely unreasonable. We will allow some of you to return home. You will carry a message to your empire. Consider this a professional courtesy." As human technicians began uploading data into the navigation systems of the surviving Zephyr ships, Cathara realized that her species had made a terrible mistake. They had not encountered another primitive world ready for conquest. They had found something much more dangerous. They had found humans. 3 damaged Zephyr ships limped away from Earth's solar system, their hulls scarred and their crews traumatized beyond anything they had ever experienced. Ambassador Cathara sat in her command chair, staring at the stars ahead with empty eyes. Behind her, Officer Zelek worked frantically at his console, trying to understand what the humans had done to their navigation systems. "Ambassador," Zelek said nervously, "the humans have uploaded something into our computers. It appears to be ... a message." Cathara turned slowly to face him. "Show me." The main screen filled with an image of Captain Chun standing calmly on the bridge of her ship. Behind her, human technicians continued their work as if nothing unusual had happened. The captain's voice was as steady and professional as ever. "Greetings, survivors of the Zephyr Expeditionary Fleet," she began. "You are carrying more than just news of your defeat. You are carrying a warning that must reach every corner of your empire." The image shifted to show detailed technical specifications of weapons that should not exist. Gravity bombs that could collapse entire star systems. Quantum viruses that could erase ships from reality itself. Temporal weapons that could age a planet to death in seconds. "These are just a few examples of what Earth can deploy if threatened again," Chun continued. "We have weapons that can crack open suns, devices that can move planets from their orbits, and tools that can make entire solar systems uninhabitable for millions of years." Cathara felt her blood turn to ice as she watched the technical demonstrations. The humans were not bluffing. Every weapon shown in the message was accompanied by detailed physics equations and test footage that proved its reality. "However," Chun's voice continued, "Earth does not wish to become a destroyer of worlds. We prefer to be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. Therefore, we are making this offer one time only." The message showed a map of the galaxy with a large sphere marked around Earth's location. The sphere encompassed nearly 50 star systems. "This is Earth's exclusion zone. Any Imperial ship that enters this area will be destroyed without warning. Any attempt to attack human colonies, human trade routes, or human allies will result in Earth bringing this war to your doorstep. We will not stop until your empire no longer exists." The technical specifications continued, showing weapons that could sterilize entire sectors of space. Planet killers that worked by destabilizing the nuclear forces inside matter itself. Stellar engineering tools that could turn stars into weapons of mass destruction. "But the choice is yours," Chun concluded. "Leave us alone, and we will remain in our corner of the galaxy, bothering no one." continue to threaten Earth or its interests, and discover what happens when humans stop playing defense and start playing offense. The message ended with coordinates and hyperspace jump calculations that would take the survivors directly back to Imperial space. But it also contained detailed sensor logs of the entire battle, complete technical analyses of every Imperial weapon and defense system, and tactical assessments that revealed every weakness in Empire military doctrine. As the three ships jumped to hyperspace, they carried with them the most comprehensive intelligence package any enemy had ever compiled. About the Zephyr Empire. The humans had not just defeated the Imperial fleet, they had learned everything there was to know about Imperial military capabilities. The journey back to Imperial space took 2 weeks. During that time, the surviving crew members had ample opportunity to review the battle recordings and realize the full scope of what had happened to them. They had not fought humans, they had been studied by them. When the ships finally arrived at Zephyr Prime, the Imperial capital world, news of the defeat spread like wildfire through the government and military hierarchy. Within hours, emergency sessions were called in the Imperial Senate, the Military High Command, and the Scientific Council. Emperor Vorthik himself, ruler of 10,000 worlds, sat in his throne room reviewing the battle footage with growing disbelief. Around him, his most trusted advisors watched in stunned silence as the recordings showed their most advanced warships being systematically destroyed by weapons that defied every known law of physics. "This is impossible," declared Admiral Thurin, head of the Imperial Navy. "No species could develop such technology without our knowledge. We monitor every civilization in the galaxy." "Apparently not," replied Science Minister Kellereth, her voice shaking as she studied the weapon specifications. "These humans have been developing military technology in secret for decades. They let us think they were primitive while they built an arsenal that makes our best weapons look like children's toys." The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. "How many ships do they have? How large is their military?" "Unknown, Your Majesty," admitted Intelligence Director Zareth. "The survivors estimate they faced maybe 200 human vessels, but there could be thousands more hidden throughout their territory. The humans revealed only what they needed to destroy our fleet." But the most disturbing revelation came when the Imperial scientists finished analyzing the human message. The technical data was not just a threat, it was a teaching tool. The humans had provided enough information for the Empire to understand exactly how outclassed they were, but not enough to develop countermeasures. "They want us to know how helpless we are," Science Minister Kellereth explained to the Emergency Council session. "Every weapon specification, every demonstration, every technical detail is designed to show us that resistance is futile. This is psychological warfare on a scale we have never encountered." Word of Earth's victory began to spread beyond the Empire's borders. The galactic communication networks carried rumors and fragments of information to every corner of known space. Species that had suffered under Imperial rule for centuries began to whisper about the humans who had made the mighty Zephyr fleet run away in terror. The Altarian Republic, enslaved by the Empire for 800 years, quietly began reaching out to Earth through diplomatic channels. The free worlds of the Outer Rim sent secret messages offering trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Even species that had never heard of humans before began asking questions about this new power that had humbled the galaxy's greatest military force. But the most significant response came from the Empire itself. Emperor Vorthik, after consulting with his advisors for 3 days, made a decision that would echo through galactic history. "Send a message to all Imperial fleets," he ordered. "By Imperial decree, all military vessels are forbidden from approaching the Sol system or any territory claimed by the humans. Any commander who violates this order will be tried for treason." The decree went further. Trade with human territories was banned. Diplomatic contact was forbidden. Imperial citizens were prohibited from even mentioning Earth in public communications. The empire that had ruled the galaxy through fear and force was now ruled by its own fear of a single world. Theron protested the decision. "Your Majesty, we cannot allow one primitive species to dictate terms to the Empire. If we yield to these humans, every subject world will see it as weakness." The Emperor's response was swift and final. "Have you reviewed the battle recordings, Admiral? Have you studied their weapons specifications? These humans destroyed 50 of our best ships without taking a single casualty. They turned our own attacks against us. They made our fastest ships move like drifting asteroids. They trapped our entire fleet in a prison made of warped space-time." He stood from his throne, his voice growing louder with each word. "This is not about pride, Admiral. This is about survival. The humans have shown us weapons that could end our civilization in a matter of days. If the choice is between Imperial dignity and Imperial existence, I choose existence." The decree was broadcast across the galaxy within hours. For the first time in its 1,000-year history, the HFY Empire had publicly acknowledged that there was a power it could not defeat. The message was clear to every species in known space. The humans were not to be threatened, attacked, or even approached without extreme caution. In the depths of space, freight pilots began changing their routes to avoid human territory. Military commanders updated their star charts to mark Earth's exclusion zone as permanently off-limits. Galactic news networks started referring to the Sol system as the Forbidden Sector. And on Earth, President Martinez stood in the rebuilt White House, looking up at the stars through her office window. The alien ships were gone, the threat was over, and humanity had sent a message that would keep them safe for generations to come. "Madam President," said General Roberts as he entered the office, "our monitoring stations report that Imperial fleet movements have stopped completely within 50 light years of Earth. They are keeping their word." Martinez nodded. "Good, but keep the Prometheus weapons ready. Something tells me this is just the beginning of humanity's relationship with the galaxy." Far across the stars, other species watched and learned. The humans had done something new. One thought possible. They had made the HFY Empire afraid, and in the darkness between the stars, new alliances began to form as the galaxy's oppressed peoples whispered a phrase that would become legend: "Don't mess with the humans." The great hall of Nexus Prime stretched high into the purple sky, its crystal walls catching the light of 3 suns. Inside, beings from across the galaxy sat in circles of floating chairs. Some had 4 arms, others had scales that changed color with their mood. A few looked almost like giant insects, their eyes reflecting the holographic displays that filled the air. Around them, Ambassador Vex-High stood at the center of it all. His skin was pale blue, and his head was larger than a human's. 2 small horns curved from his forehead, and when he smiled, his teeth looked sharp enough to cut metal. He waved one long finger, and the air above him filled with images of a small blue planet spinning slowly in space. "Look at this," Vex-High said, his voice carrying easily through the hall. "The 3rd planet from a yellow star. They call it Earth." He made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like glass breaking. "These creatures think they are ready to join us among the stars." The images changed to show cities on Earth's surface. Tall buildings reached toward the sky, but they looked tiny compared to the crystal towers of Nexus Prime. Cars moved along roads like ants following trails. Ships floated on blue oceans, pushing through water instead of flying through space. "They have been on their world for millions of years," Vex-High continued. "And what have they done? They learned to make fire only yesterday. They discovered how to use lightning just a few hundred of their years ago. They still fight wars over lines. They draw on maps that exist only in their minds." A ripple of amusement went through the assembled beings. The Zephyrian trade minister, whose body looked like it was made of golden threads woven together, spoke up. Show us their greatest achievement in space travel. Vex-High's smile grew wider. The hologram changed to show a small metal station orbiting close to Earth. It looked like a few tin cans stuck together with solar panels attached like wings. Tiny ships, no bigger than insects, flew back and forth between the station and the planet below. This, Vex-High said, pointing at the space station, is what they consider their triumph. A small collection of metal rooms that barely leaves their planet's gravity well. Their ships use controlled explosions to push themselves through space. Controlled explosions, like children playing with firecrackers. The laughter grew louder. The crystalline architect representative, a being that looked like walking diamond, made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. How long did it take them to build this impressive structure? 20 of their years, Vex-High replied. 20 years to put together something our construction drones could build in 20 minutes. More images flashed in the air. Humans in bulky white suits bounced around on their moon like they were celebrating some great victory. Their lunar base was nothing more than a few domes connected by tunnels. Their Mars colony was even smaller, just a handful of buildings covered in red dust. They send messages into space, said the Hegemony Fleet Commander, a creature whose body was covered in thick armor plates. Radio waves screaming, "Hello, is anyone out there?" As if the galaxy cares about their existence. What do their messages say? Asked someone from the back of the hall. Vex-High touched a control, and a human voice filled the hall, speaking in a language none of them understood. Then the translation appeared in glowing letters. This is a message from the people of Earth. We come in peace. We seek knowledge and friendship among the stars. The laughter was so loud now that the crystal walls began to ring like bells. Several beings held their sides, or whatever they used for sides. The Zephyrian minister's golden threads actually knotted themselves from amusement. Peace, wheezed the fleet commander. They speak of peace while they point weapons at each other on their own world. Friendship. They cannot even be friends with members of their own species. Vex-High waited for the laughter to die down. But here is the most amusing part. They think they are alone in the universe. They scan their skies with primitive instruments, looking for any sign that other intelligent life exists. They write stories about the day when aliens might visit their world. They dream of joining some great community of star-traveling peoples. He paused for effect. They have no idea that 47 different species have observation posts in their system. They cannot see our ships. They cannot detect our stations. We have been watching them for 50 of their years, and they have never noticed us once. The Dominion Science Advisor, whose body was mostly a large brain in a transparent case, spoke with a voice that sounded like music. Perhaps we should make contact, study them more closely. Why? Vex-High asked. What could we possibly learn from a species that still uses wheels to move across their planet's surface? What wisdom could come from beings who fight wars over which invisible friend in the sky they choose to worship? Their biology is interesting, the science advisor offered weakly. Their biology is standard carbon-based life, Vex-High replied. Nothing we have not seen 1,000 times before. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. They live for barely a century. They reproduce slowly. They require constant food and water and air. They are, in every way, ordinary. The images changed again to show humans going about their daily lives. Children playing in parks. Adults working in offices. Families eating together around tables. To the beings in the Great Hall, it all looked impossibly simple and boring. I motion that we classify their world as a protected primitive zone, Vex-High announced. Not because they deserve protection, but because they are too primitive to bother with. Let them develop for another 1,000 years. Maybe then they will be interesting enough to talk to. Seconded, called the fleet commander. Agreed, said the Zephyrian minister. One by one, every representative in the hall voted yes. The holographic images of Earth faded away, replaced by an official stamp that marked the planet as off-limits to contact. Not because humanity was special, but because they were considered too boring to waste time on. Excellent, Vexai said. Now, let us move on to important matters. The trade. Dispute over the Andorian crystal mines requires our attention. As the meeting moved on to topics they considered worthy of their time, Earth disappeared from their thoughts as quickly as smoke in the wind. The observation posts would remain, staffed by junior scientists who drew the assignment as punishment for poor performance. The automated scanners would continue recording human progress, filing reports that no one would read. In the Great Hall of Nexus Prime, surrounded by the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, not one being considered the possibility that silence might be more dangerous than noise. Not one imagined that a species might use isolation as a tool for growth rather than a sign of weakness. They had made their decision about humanity based on what they could see, but they had never considered what they could not see. They had never wondered what humans might be doing in the shadows, in the quiet spaces between their radio signals, in the long silences when Earth seemed to be doing nothing at all. The galaxies. Greatest powers returned to their own concerns, confident that they had properly catalogued another unremarkable species. Earth's file was marked complete and forgotten, stored away with thousands of other worlds deemed unworthy of attention. None of them noticed that the human ships they had mocked were traveling farther from Earth each year. None of them detected the energy signatures growing stronger in the outer edges of the solar system. None of them realized that human silence was not empty, it was full of preparation. Dr. Kethera pressed her face against the observation window of Station 07, hidden on the dark side of Earth's moon. Her large silver eyes watched the small blue planet turn slowly below. She had been stationed here for 15 Earth years now, and the assignment still felt like punishment. Her body was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished metal. 4 arms moved across the control panels, recording data that she knew no one back home would bother to read. The Zephyrian Science Council had sent her here after she had questioned their methods during the Great Survey. This was where they put scientists who asked too many uncomfortable questions. Day 5412. She spoke into her recording device. The humans continue their expansion into what they call the inner solar system. 3 new mining stations have been constructed in the asteroid belt. Population of their Mars colony has reached 50,000 individuals. She paused and looked at the numbers on her screen. When she had first arrived, Mars had only a few hundred humans living in small domes. Now they had built entire cities, under protective shields. The change had happened faster than any computer model had predicted. Note for the record, she continued, human development continues to exceed projected timelines by significant margins. Through her telescopes, she watched a human cargo ship land at the lunar base on the near side of the moon. The ship was 3 times larger than the one she had seen when she first arrived. The humans called it normal progress, but Kethara had studied hundreds of species. Normal progress was not this fast. Her communication panel beeped. A message from her supervisor back on Nexus Prime appeared on the screen. Dr. Kethara, your reports continue to be unnecessarily detailed. Please limit future observations to basic statistical data. The human situation remains stable and uninteresting. Kethara looked back at Earth, stable and uninteresting. If only they knew what she had been seeing. She pulled up her private files, the ones she did not send to her supervisors. Charts and graphs filled her screens, showing patterns that made her skin change from silver to a worried blue-green color. Every other species in the galaxy followed predictable development curves. They would discover fire, then agriculture, then metalworking, then electronics, then space travel. Each step took roughly the same amount of time. Give or take a few centuries. But humans were different. They did not just discover things and move on. They took each discovery and used it to make the next discovery happen faster. Fire led to metalworking in just a few thousand years instead of the usual 10,000. Electronics led to computers in decades instead of centuries. And now, space travel was leading to something else entirely. She zoomed her telescope in on the human space station. It was no longer the small collection of modules that Ambassador Vex-High had mocked in the council chambers. It had grown into a massive wheel spinning in space, with ships coming and going every few hours. But that was not what worried her. What worried her were the ships that left the station and never came back. Cathara had been tracking them for 2 years now. Human vessels would dock at the station, load supplies, and then accelerate toward the edge of the solar system. Her instruments could follow them for about a week before they disappeared beyond her sensor range. When she asked the automated, monitoring stations in the outer system for data, they reported nothing unusual. But Cathara knew the humans were going somewhere. She switched her view to the Mars colony and felt her skin turn an even darker shade of blue. The humans had built something new there, something her superiors had not noticed because they only looked at the population reports. Hidden beneath the main city was a massive industrial complex. Automated factories worked around the clock, producing things that did not appear in any human trade manifests. Computer, analyze human industrial output versus reported civilian needs, she commanded. The numbers appeared on her screen, and Cathara felt her heart skip a beat. The humans were producing 10 times more metal, electronics, and advanced materials than their colonies needed. Where was it all going? She pulled up the energy readings from Earth itself. Another pattern that should have alarmed her supervisors if they had bothered to look. Power consumption across the planet had tripled in the past 5 years. Not gradually, as would be expected from population growth and development. It had spiked suddenly, as if the humans had started building something that required enormous amounts of energy. But the most disturbing pattern was in the radio signals. When Cathara had first arrived, Earth's radio waves filled space with chatter. Television shows, radio programs, satellite communications, internet traffic. The humans never stopped talking to each other. But over the past 3 years, certain frequencies had gone quiet. Military frequencies, government channels, scientific, research bands. The humans were still broadcasting their entertainment and civilian communications, but the important conversations had moved to channels that Cathara could not detect. She had tried to report this to her supervisors, but they had dismissed her concerns. The humans are probably just upgrading their communication systems, her department chief had replied. Nothing to worry about. Cathara was not so sure. She had spent her career studying how species developed, and she had never seen anything like what the humans were doing. Most species followed a pattern of slow, steady growth. They would explore their local area, establish colonies, then gradually expand outward over thousands of years. But humans seemed to be doing everything at once. While they built cities on Mars, they also sent ships to the outer planets. While they established mining operations in the asteroid belt, they also launched exploration missions beyond the edge of their solar system. While they improved their home planet, they also prepared for something else entirely. It reminded Cathara of the way her people prepared for winter storms on her home world. When the weather satellites detected a big storm coming, everyone would suddenly start working faster, gathering supplies, reinforcing buildings, storing food and water. The calm period before the storm always looked like frantic activity to outside observers. But what storm were the humans preparing for? Cathara pulled up the galactic news feeds and felt her skin turn pale silver with worry. The hegemony war had been building for months now. Old alliances were breaking apart. Species that had been friends for centuries were choosing sides in a conflict that seemed likely to tear the galaxy apart. But the human observation posts had been sending routine reports saying that Earth showed no signs of being aware of the growing conflict. The humans continued their normal activities, their radio broadcasts still filled with entertainment and civilian news. To anyone reading the official reports, it would seem like the humans had no idea that war was coming. Cathara knew better. She had watched the humans long enough to understand something that her supervisors had missed. Humans did not ignore threats. They prepared for them. When they seemed calm and quiet, it usually meant they were working on something important. She tried one more time to contact her supervisors. This is Dr. Cathara at Station 07. I am requesting permission to increase monitoring of human activities. I believe they may be aware of the galactic situation and taking defensive measures. The response came back within hours. Request denied. Focus on your assigned tasks. The humans remain a low priority. Cathara looked out her window at Earth one more time. The blue planet looked peaceful and quiet, just as it always had. But she had learned not to trust human silence. She began preparing her own private report, one that she would send directly to the Galactic Council when she had enough evidence. Someone needed to pay attention to what the humans were really doing. Someone needed to understand that a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters might not be as helpless as they appeared. Someone needed to realize that human silence might be the most dangerous sound in the galaxy. But for now, she could only watch and wait, counting the ships that left Earth and never returned, measuring the energy spikes that grew stronger each day, and wondering what the humans were building in the darkness between the stars. The first shot of the hegemony war was fired at dawn on Nexus Prime. A Dominion battlecruiser appeared without, warning above the Crystal City, and opened fire on the Zephyrian embassy. The golden threads of the trade minister's body scattered, like leaves in a hurricane, as the building collapsed around him. Within hours, the galaxy was burning. Admiral Gorthic of the Hegemony Fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching another world die through the main view screen. The planet below had once been home to 3 billion crystalline architects. Now it was nothing but glowing fragments drifting through space. His planet-killer weapons had worked exactly as designed. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving recall orders from all outer system observation posts." Gorthic nodded without taking his eyes off the destruction. "Good. We need every ship for the assault on the core worlds. How many posts are we pulling back?" 147 posts from 32 systems, sir, including the primitive world monitoring stations. "The what?" Gorthic asked. "The observation posts watching undeveloped species, sir. There are posts around several worlds classified as protected primitive zones." Gorthic made a dismissive gesture with one of his 4 arms. "Fine. Leave automated sensors to watch the primitive worlds. If any of them develop faster than expected, we can deal with them after the war." The communications officer hesitated. "Sir, some of the scientists are requesting permission to maintain their posts. Dr. Cathara from the Sol System Station has filed several urgent reports about unusual activity." "Dr. Cathara?" Gorthic searched his memory. "Is that not the scientist we exiled for asking too many questions?" "Yes, sir." "Then ignore her reports. She is probably just trying to make her assignment seem important. Recall all personnel from the primitive worlds immediately. We have real enemies to fight." Across the galaxy, observation posts that had watched overdeveloping species for decades powered down their main systems. Scientists packed their equipment and boarded transport ships that would carry them to the front lines. The long watch over Earth and dozens of other worlds came to an end. Dr. Kethara received her recall order while she was tracking another group of human ships leaving the solar system. She read the message 3 times, her skin turning pale with worry. "Computer, compose priority message to Galactic Command," she said. "Ready for dictation, Dr. Kethara. This is Dr. Kethara, Sol System Observer. I am requesting permission to remain at my post. Human activity in this system has increased dramatically over the past 6 months. Energy signatures suggest major construction projects in the outer system. Ship movements indicate possible military preparation. I believe the humans may be aware of galactic situation and taking defensive action." She paused, looking out at Earth one more time. "Computer, add the following. In my professional opinion, classifying humans as primitive may have been a serious error. Request immediate review of their status before recall of observation assets." The response came back within an hour. "Dr. Kethara, you are ordered to return to fleet assignment immediately. Your replacement theories about human development are noted but not considered credible. Automated systems will provide adequate monitoring of the Sol system." Kethara felt her skin turn dark blue with frustration. She looked at her screens one more time, watching the data streams that showed human ships moving toward the edge of their solar system. Ships that were larger and more advanced than anything the humans had built before. Ships that carried energy signatures her instruments could not fully analyze. "Computer, download all observational data to secure storage. Mark files for delayed. Transmission to Galactic Command. Download complete. Dr. Kethara. Files marked for transmission in 1 standard year if no manual override is received." It was the best she could do. If she was wrong about the humans, the files would be automatically deleted and forgotten. If she was right, someone might eventually read them and understand what had been missed. She packed her equipment and boarded the transport ship that would carry her back to the war. As her station powered down behind her, the automated systems took over. Simple scanners that would record basic data, but could not analyze patterns or understand the deeper meaning of what they observed. The Sol system fell silent from outside. Observation for the first time in 50 years. On Earth, nobody noticed that the Watchers had gone away. Humans continued their daily lives, going to work, raising families, watching entertainment programs on their screens. But in secret facilities, hidden beneath mountains and ocean floors, other work continued around the clock. Sarah Chun stood in the command center buried 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains. Banks of computers lined the walls, their screens showing data from across the solar system. She was the director of planetary defense, a job that officially did not exist in an organization that had no budget in any government records. "Status report," she said to the technician at the nearest console. "All shipyards are operating at maximum capacity, Director. We now have 812 vessels of various classes completed and stationed in the outer system. Construction rate has increased 20% since the alien observation post went dark." Sarah nodded. Humanity had known about the Watchers for 30 years. It had taken careful planning to hide their true capabilities while appearing to develop at a normal pace. Every advancement had to be disguised. Every new technology had to be hidden. Every ship had to be built in the shadow of the gas giants, where alien sensors could not detect them. "What about the Deep Space Monitoring Array?" she asked. "Fully operational, Director. We have been tracking the galactic conflict for 6 months. Based on current patterns, we estimate the war will reach our local cluster within 18 months. Sarah walked the main display, which showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked battles that were raging across dozens of star systems. The scale of destruction was enormous. Entire civilizations were being wiped out in a matter of days. "Do we have any indication that Earth has been targeted?" she asked. "No, Director. Analysis suggests we are still classified as a primitive species. The warring factions appear to be focused on strategic systems with established civilizations." "Good. That gives us more time to prepare. What is the status of Project Sanctuary?" The technician pulled up new data. "Construction of the deep space facilities is ahead of schedule. We now have 47 stations positioned beyond the heliopause, each capable of supporting 10,000 people. If Earth is attacked, we can evacuate key personnel and continue. Resistance from hidden bases." Sarah studied the numbers. Humanity had learned from history. They had studied every invasion, every genocide, every attempt by one group to wipe out another. The lesson was always the same. Survival required preparation. It required having backup plans and hidden resources. It required being ready for the worst while hoping for the best. "And the weapon systems?" she asked quietly. "Testing continues at the Titan facility. The new particle beam arrays exceed all performance specifications. The gravity distortion devices are ready for deployment. The antimatter production facilities are operating at full capacity." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. Humanity had spent decades watching the galaxy through telescopes and radio signals. They had learned about alien technologies by studying the energy signatures of distant battles. They had reverse-engineered principles they could barely understand and turned them into weapons the galaxy had never seen before. "Director," another technician called out, "we are receiving a transmission from Deep Space Monitor Station Alpha 7. Put it on the main screen." The display changed to show the face of Captain Williams, commander of one of their most distant outposts. Behind him, Sarah could see the stars through the viewports of his ship. "Director Chun, we have detected massive fleet movements in the Vega sector. At least 3 different factions are moving toward each other. Estimated fleet sizes are in the thousands of ships each. Battle should commence within 48 hours. Thank you, Captain. Continue monitoring and report any changes." The transmission ended, and Sarah turned back to her staff. The galaxy was tearing itself apart in a war that would determine which species survived and which were destroyed. Earth was not supposed to be part of that war. Humanity was supposed to be too primitive to matter. But Sarah knew that assumptions could be dangerous things. She also knew that species which survived were usually the ones that prepared for threats they hoped would never come. "Continue all preparations," she ordered. "If this war comes to our system, humanity will be ready." In the darkness between the stars, human ships waited in silence. Hidden stations monitored galactic communications. Secret weapons powered up for tests that left no traces. And on Earth, 8 billion people continued their normal lives while a few thousand worked in the shadows to ensure that normal life could continue. The galaxy had forgotten about the small blue world and its primitive inhabitants. That was exactly what humanity had been counting on. Admiral Vorthik stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for battle. 3 years of war had brought the hegemony to this moment. Every surviving ship from a dozen species floated in formation. Around him, their weapons powered and ready. Today they would strike at the heart of enemy territory and end this war once and for all. "Fleet status report," he commanded. 12,000 ships ready for battle, Admiral," his tactical officer replied. "We have 600 dreadnoughts, 2,000 cruisers, 4,000 destroyers, and 3,000 support vessels. Enemy forces are estimated at similar strength." Vorthik nodded with satisfaction. His massive form filled the command chair, his thick armor plates gleaming under the bridge lights. The enemy fleet waited for them beyond the gas giant, probably planning their own surprise attack. But Vorthik had superior numbers and the element of surprise. This battle would decide who ruled the galaxy. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "long-range sensors are detecting movement at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts approaching at high speed." "How many contacts?" Vorthik asked. "Unclear, sir. As sensor readings are ... strange. The ships do not match any known designs in our database." Vorthik felt a chill run through his body. Unknown ships appearing during the most important battle of the war could only mean one thing. Another species had decided to join the fight. "Put them on the main screen," he ordered. The view screen flickered and showed space at the edge of the system. At first, Vorthik saw nothing unusual. Then points of light began to appear, growing larger as they approached. Ships emerged from jump space in perfect formation, their hulls reflecting starlight in ways that made them difficult to focus on. "Admiral," the tactical officer's voice was tight with worry. "Computer analysis suggests these ships are using technology we do not recognize. Their energy signatures are unlike anything in our database." More ships kept appearing. Hundreds of them, and thousands. They moved with precision that spoke of advanced computer control or crew training beyond anything Vorthik had ever seen. Their formation was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Open a channel," Vorthik commanded. "Demand identification." The communications officer worked at his controls for several minutes before looking up with confusion. "Sir, they are responding on all frequencies simultaneously. Perfect galactic standard translation. Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was calm and clear, speaking with an accent none of them had heard before. "This is Admiral Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. You have 30 minutes to cease hostilities and withdraw to your home systems. This is your only warning." Silence filled the bridge. Vorthik felt his heart skip several beats as he processed what he had just heard. Earth, the primitive world that was supposed to be inhabited by creatures who could barely reach their own. Moon. "Admiral Chun," Vorthik said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "This is Admiral Vorthok of the Hegemony Fleet. You are interfering in a galactic conflict that does not concern your species. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came back immediately. "Admiral Vorthok, you have 29 minutes and 45 seconds. "Sir," the tactical officer whispered, "long-range scans are showing the true size of their fleet. We count over 1,000 ships. Some of them are larger than our biggest dreadnoughts." Vorthik stared at the screen in disbelief. The ships hanging in space before him looked nothing like the primitive rockets and space stations his people had observed around Earth. These vessels were sleek and deadly, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. Weapons ports dotted, their surfaces like the eyes of predators. "Impossible," he breathed. "They are supposed to be primitive. They still use chemical rockets." "Admiral," the sensor operator called out, "I am detecting massive energy signatures from the human fleet. Their weapons are powering up." On the view screen, the human ships began to move. They did not advance in the chaotic rush that most species used in battle. Instead, they flowed through space like schools of fish, each ship perfectly positioned to support the others. Their formation was a work of art that spoke of centuries of tactical development. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the enemy fleet. We came here to fight. They are requesting immediate ceasefire and asking who these new ships belong to." Vorthik realized that both fleets were now facing the same problem. A third force had appeared that neither side understood. The enemy fleet he had been preparing to destroy was just as confused and frightened as his own forces. "All ships, battle stations," he commanded. "Prepare to engage the human fleet." "Admiral," his tactical officer said quietly, "perhaps we should Consider their warning. We know nothing about their capabilities. They are primitives. Vorthik roared. No matter what ships they have stolen or built, they cannot match the combined might of civilizations that have been fighting in space for thousands of years. But even as he said the words, he felt doubt creeping into his mind. The human ships moved with a confidence that spoke of extensive combat experience. Their formations were perfect. Their energy signatures were stronger than anything his scanners had ever detected. "Sir, we are receiving another transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through." Admiral Chun's voice filled the bridge again, but this time it carried an edge of steel. "Admiral Vorthik, you now have 15 minutes. During the past 3 years, we have watched your species destroy 37 worlds and kill over 12 billion sentient beings. We will not allow this destruction to continue." "How do you know our casualty figures?" Vorthik demanded. "We have been monitoring your war since it began. We know the location of every fleet, the status of every battle, and the name of every world you have destroyed. We know because we have been watching and learning while you have been dying." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Vorthik felt something he had not experienced in decades of warfare: fear. "Sir," the tactical officer whispered, "additional human ships are appearing throughout the system. They seem to be surrounding both fleets." Vorthik looked at the tactical display and felt his blood turn cold. Red dots representing human ships were appearing everywhere. They had not just brought one fleet. They had brought multiple fleets and positioned them at strategic points throughout the system. Both galactic forces were now trapped. "Impossible," he whispered. "How did they move so many ships without being detected?" "Admiral," the sensor operator called out, "I am detecting some kind of artificial structures in the outer system. Large installations that were not there when we arrived." "Show me." The view screen changed to display the edge of the system, where massive geometric shapes hung in the darkness. They looked like space stations, but they were larger than most. Cities. Energy readings from the structures made the ship's computers struggle to process the data. "Those installations," the tactical officer said slowly, "they appear to have been built recently. The metal is still cooling from construction." Vorthik realized what he was seeing. The humans had not just brought a fleet to this battle. They had built military bases and positioned them around the system before either galactic fleet had arrived. This was not a sudden intervention. This was a carefully planned operation. "Admiral Chun," he said into the communicator, "how long have you been preparing for this?" The answer came back immediately. "We have been preparing since the day we discovered we were not alone in the universe. We learned that the galaxy was full of species that solved their problems through violence. So we prepared for the day when that violence would reach our home. You have been hiding your true capabilities for decades. We have been learning. While you fought each other, we studied your technologies. While you destroyed worlds, we built fleets. While you celebrated victories, we prepared for war." Vorthik looked at his tactical display one more time. Thousands of human ships surrounded his forces. Massive weapon platforms hung in space like waiting predators. For the first time in his military career, he was completely outmatched. "Admiral Chun," he said finally, "what are your terms?" The answer came back without hesitation. "All warships will power down weapons and return to their home systems immediately. Any ship that fires a weapon will be destroyed. The war ends now." Around him, Vorthik could see his officers looking at him with expressions of shock and fear. The most powerful fleet in galactic history had just been given orders by a species they had dismissed as primitive dot. The silence stretched for long minutes before Vorthik finally spoke. "All ships, power down weapons and prepare to withdraw." The galaxy had just learned that underestimating the quiet ones was always a mistake. The great crystal halls of Nexus Prime had been rebuilt after the first attack of the war, but they would never look the same. Cracks ran through the walls like scars, and the light of the three suns seemed dimmer than before. The surviving members of the Galactic Council sat in their floating chairs, but their numbers were much smaller now. War had claimed many species entirely. Ambassador Vex-High was not among the survivors. His people, the Dominion, had been one of the first to fall when the human fleets arrived in their home system. The reports said he had died when his command ship was cut in half by weapons that bent space itself. In his place sat Ambassador Felinara of the Crystalline Architects, one of the few species that still had enough ships left to matter. Her diamond body caught the fractured light as she spoke to the figure on the main display screen. "Admiral Chun," she said, her voice like wind chimes, "the Council formally requests to know your intentions regarding the remaining galactic civilizations." The human woman on the screen looked tired. 3 months had passed since the human fleets had appeared throughout the galaxy, ending the Hegemony War in a matter of days. Since then, Admiral Chun had become the most important person in known space, though she seemed to take no pleasure in the role. "Our intentions remain the same as they were when we first made contact," Admiral Chun replied. "We want the killing to stop. We want the rebuilding to begin. We want species to solve their problems with words instead of planet-killer weapons." "But what gives you the right to make that decision for the galaxy?" asked General Korath of the Hegemony Remnant. His armor was scarred from battles, and one of his forearms was missing. "You appeared from nowhere and destroyed fleets that took centuries to build." Admiral Chun's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "General Korath, your fleets destroyed 43 worlds in the past 3 years. That includes the complete extinction of 6 species. We have recordings of your ships burning civilian populations while they tried to surrender." She leaned forward slightly. "You ask what gives us the right?" "The same thing that gave you the right to commit genocide. The ability to do it. The difference is that we choose to use our power to save lives instead of ending them." The council chamber fell silent. Through the cracked crystal walls, they could see human ships hanging in orbit around Nexus Prime. The vessels were beautiful in a way that made them seem almost alive, their hulls shifting and flowing like liquid metal. But everyone in the chamber knew that each ship carried enough firepower to crack a planet. "Admiral," said Dr. Yanthara of the Science Coalition, "many of our people still do not understand how your species developed such advanced technology while appearing primitive. Our observation posts reported that you were centuries away from interstellar travel." Admiral Chun smiled for the first time in the conversation, but it was not a happy expression. "Dr. Yanthara, your observation posts saw exactly what we wanted them to see. Every rocket launch, every space station, every Mars colony was designed to make you think we were developing at a normal pace." She gestured to someone off-screen, and the display changed to show images that made the council members gasp. Massive shipyards hidden in the shadow of Jupiter. Industrial complexes buried beneath the ice of Europa. Mining operations in the asteroid belt that stretched for millions of kilometers. While your people watched our public space program, Admiral Chun continued, "Our real work was happening where you could not see it. We built our first interstellar ships 30 years ago. We established colonies in nearby systems 20 years ago. We have been studying your technologies and improving upon them for decades." "Impossible," breathed General Korath. "Our sensors would have detected such massive construction projects." "Your sensors detected what we allowed them to detect. We learned early that the galaxy judged species by their apparent capabilities. So we made sure our apparent capabilities matched your expectations." Ambassador Felinara's crystalline body rang like a bell as she shifted in her chair. You deliberately deceived us for decades. We protected ourselves, Admiral Chun corrected. We watched the galaxy for 50 years before you even noticed we existed. We saw how older species treated younger ones. We saw what happened to worlds that appeared weak or valuable. We decided that looking primitive was safer than looking advanced. The display changed again to show the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas where fighting had stopped, but damage remained severe. Yellow zones showed regions where human reconstruction fleets were working to repair damaged worlds. Green zones indicated areas where normal life was returning. We have spent the past 3 months stopping fights and rebuilding what your war destroyed, Admiral Chun said. Our medical ships are treating wounded on 40 different worlds. Our construction fleets are rebuilding cities and space stations. Our food ships are feeding populations whose supply lines were destroyed. Why? Asked Dr. Yenthara. Why help species that would have ignored your existence if you had remained primitive? Admiral Chun was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, because someone has to. We watched your war kill billions of innocent people. We watched entire civilizations disappear from the galaxy. We could have stayed, hidden, and let you all destroy each other, but that would have made us no better than the species who started this war. But you could rule the galaxy now, General Korath said. Your fleets are more powerful than anything we have ever seen. Your technology is beyond our understanding. Why do you not simply take control? Because ruling through fear creates more. Wars, Admiral Chun replied. We studied galactic history while we prepared for this day. Every time one species conquered the others, it led to rebellion and more destruction. We do not want to rule anyone. We want to live in a galaxy where species work together instead of trying to destroy each other. The council members looked at each other with expressions of confusion and disbelief. The idea of a species with ultimate power choosing not to use it was alien to most of them. What happens now? Asked Ambassador Felinara. Now we rebuild, Admiral Chun said. We establish new rules for how species interact with each other. We create systems for solving disputes without warfare. We make sure that what happened in us past 3 years never happens again. And if species refuse to follow these new rules? General Korath asked. Admiral Chun's expression became cold again. Then they will discover why we built so many ships. The display changed one more time to show a view of Earth from space. The blue planet looked peaceful and beautiful, just as it had in the old observation reports. But now everyone who looked at it knew the truth. This small world had produced the most powerful military force in galactic history, and they had done it in complete secrecy. The Earth you see on your screen is home to 8 billion humans, Admiral Chun said. Every one of them grew up hearing stories about wars and disasters and species that went extinct because they could not defend themselves. We decided long ago that humanity would not suffer that fate. She paused, letting her words sink in. We prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. We built weapons while planning for peace. We became strong so we could choose to be gentle. The galaxy laughed at our silence, but our silence was never empty. It was full of determination. The transmission ended, leaving the Galactic Council sitting in their damaged chamber, staring at the empty screen. Outside their windows, human ships continued their patient orbits, silent guardians watching over a galaxy that was learning to live without war. Ambassador Felinara spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. They were primitive when we first found them. Chemical rockets and radio signals. How did they advance so quickly? Dr. Yenthara had been studying the human technology reports for weeks. They did not advance quickly. They advanced quietly. There is a difference. General Korath stared out at the human ships with something that might have been respect. They learned from watching us destroy each other. They saw our mistakes and chose not to repeat them. The galaxy had learned the lesson that day. The most dangerous species was not always the loudest or the most aggressive. Sometimes it was the one that watched and waited and prepared in silence. Sometimes it was the one that everyone thought they could ignore. Humanity had been underestimated because they looked weak, but they had never been weak. They had been patient, and patience, combined with determination and careful planning, had proven to be the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The age of galactic war was over. The age of human peace had begun.